Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. There is a bunch of interesting pieces of news that came out today when it comes to Gaijin. They just threw out a bunch of devblogs and also a bunch of sales, so I thought in this video we would kind of cover them all. Another thing to also mention is there is, or at least there seems to be, going to be Twitch drops this weekend for the esports side of things. So if you want to get some free stuff, probably like a day of premium, then maybe some boosters, make sure to check that out on the esports streams. And also at the same time, the new update is probably going to come out maybe in a week or so, so look forward to that as well. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe and also like the video. Let's get started. The first piece of news is a devblog for the USS Charles F. Adams. This is an American destroyer which is coming into the game at rank 4, and it's kind of interesting because it's America's first missile destroyer. Of course, previously, America has had the Dougie, the little Douglas, with the missiles on it, but now it seems like it's going into the missile age with its Blue Water Fleet too. Basically, the Charles F. Adams is an AA destroyer, so even though it's getting access to missiles, they are the RIM-24 Tartar missiles, which are anti-air ones. These can still do damage to naval vessels. They're the same ones which are actually on the Douglas, surprisingly, so you can kind of see what they're like in the game. It also gets access to these more Cold War era 5-inch cannons, which for the Americans have a ridiculously good fire rate, meaning that you can output a lot of damage, and it has a really good kind of targeting system on it, meaning that you can be very accurate very quickly. The Charles F. Adams class destroyers became iconic ships during the Cold War, combining traditional gunfire with cutting-edge missile technology. The lead ship of the class, the USS Charles F. Adams, or DDG-2, entered service in 1960, and immediately found itself at the epicenter of history, participating in the Mercury 8 mission and then in the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, where it was involved in enforcing a naval blockade of Cuba. The USS Charles F. Adams later served in the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf, escorting the aircraft carrier, the USS Independence. Despite its active service, USS Charles F. Adams's fate after its decommissioning in 1990 was pretty dramatic. Years of efforts by veterans and historians to preserve it as a museum in Jacksonville, Florida, ran into financial and also bureaucratic hurdles. The US Navy refused to hand over the ship, and in 2020, it was sent to Texas for scrapping. This is the first in many missile destroyers that could easily come to the American tech tree, but after the comments from some of the devs about the fact that they're trying to figure out how to make these things fun, then we're probably not going to see anytime soon, or at least none of the kind of anti-ship variants, probably just the anti-air ones. But this is the second kind of missile vehicle that is coming in this update, the other one of course being the MPK-33, which is another vehicle that hopefully we see a little bit more of in the game. They also have a devblog about being able to control the aircraft radar with the mouse cursor. So they've added more elements to the HUD when you're in air battles to be able to basically control the radar a bit better. You can put all of the icons on the screen for the radar, and what this ends up doing is it shows you all the different keybinds that you have for all the different specific ones, and then if you don't want to use the keybinds, you can hit Alt and then use your mouse to be able to click everything. You can also change the scale of your radar, you can change where it's vertically looking, and also you can change pretty much everything else. So it's basically made the UI completely clickable in terms of what you want to do with it, and also to give you a visual reminder of what your controls are for the radar. Even though generally I feel like this isn't actually that useful, it's one of those really nice UI things which will kind of be a reminder to people on what controls they have where, so therefore it'll be easier for them to remember and kind of muscle memory map their their fingers to the controls that they use. But in terms of the actual game, if you are in the heat of a battle and you are fiddling around with your radar settings with the mouse, that's not going to work very well, because in order to do that, you have to lose control of your aircraft and also not be able to fight alongside of it. So it's going to be a little bit weird for a lot of people, but I think the main thing that's a positive out of this is the fact that it gives you a visual representation of which buttons you are supposed to be hitting in order to change your radar stuff. Everything else is a nice little bonus, but I just don't know how useful it is. Maybe in Simulator, it'll be more useful than in other game modes. Another thing that's also happening in War Thunder is Gajin is celebrating Dolgushin's birthday. Basically, this guy is being celebrated from the 11th of September until the 15th of September, and that means that they're bringing back two vehicles. You have the Dolgushin's good old LA7 that you can see here, and then also you have the LA11, which are temporarily available for Golden Eagles. So basically this one, and then also this one. The Dolgushin's LA7 is basically just a copy of the standard LA7. You can see the LA7 here, and then also you have the LA7B. Now, when it comes to the LA7 for Dolgushin's, it's actually the copy of this one, but at a higher rank. So what that means is you basically get better benefits from having the premium vehicle. You get better rewards, and also it's able to research more. Basically rank 5 and then below means hyper efficiency for this type of vehicle. Now, the LA7 itself, it has access to the Svetsov M82FN, which is a pretty powerful engine when you're at medium and low altitudes. You also have two 20mm Shevaks, which is okay in terms of damage. There are definitely better kind of sets of armament out there. For me, I've never been a huge fan of the Shevaks, basically because they have a bunch of different kind of ammunition choices, and a lot of them I've never really been able to make work. But at least, you know, there is a bunch of options that you can try and see what kind of works for you. The other thing is it does also get some secondary armaments, so it does get some bombs that you can bring along, so you can use it as a CAS element, and surprisingly, it does actually get some really interesting modifications in terms of survivability. So you have a bunch of bulletproof glass in the front, you also have a bunch in the back, and also the kind of chair has a bit of armor behind it, so this means that your pilot is super survivable compared to a lot of other vehicles that are around. So you can actually tank a few shots compared to others. Usually it means your engine dies before your pilot does, so it just gives you that little bit of extra that you can set up. Now for me, the LA7 is a fine vehicle. I generally think the Levechkins overall are quite nice. I use the LA5FN quite a lot, just for the kind of ground part of it, since Russia has a pretty interesting 3-7 lineup, but at 4-7 as well, you also have stuff like the T-3457, the KV-1s IS-5, and then also the friends that you meet along the way. So there's no reason why this couldn't be a nice kind of ground fighter to be able to hold the skies and play the superiority role while also using the 20mm to go after lighter targets. In air, it fits the meta a lot better than many of the other vehicles that kind of are around, just because air has got a lot quicker nowadays and people jump on each other a lot easier, and therefore you can take advantage of that in Soviet vehicles. So it's in a better position than it was, but I still don't think it's in a great position, if that makes sense. So for me, I feel like there are probably better options in terms of the premiums at this BR, mainly stuff like the Spitfire, and then also other vehicles like the Yak-3T and the Yak-3 VK-107. The next vehicle is the LA-11. I cannot stand this thing, personally. Basically, what the LA-11 is it's an extension of the LA-9. It was designed to be a long-range version of the LA-9, which pretty much means it's just a heavier version of it, and therefore not better, if anything, just worse. So it has more fuel on board, which is fine, but as I said, it just means it's heavier. The vehicle has a really nice engine attached to it, which generally works very well. It has these awkward 23mm. You basically get 3 of them in the nose, and I've always struggled with being able to use these. I think it might be because they're mounted quite high compared to where the center of the vehicle is, so therefore I always shoot over targets instead of at them. But if you are able to actually, you know, deal damage with the guns, you can generally do very well. Like the 23mm do hit like a truck, so if you actually do hit the target, you take it out. But the problem is you're not really useful in ground, you're not really useful in naval, because you're designed to be a long-range fighter, and pretty much every long-range fighter in the game gets outmaneuvered by the mid-range to short-range fighters, because they are lighter, they have less fuel, and also generally have just better flight characteristics, because the game isn't really set up for long-range fighters, and the LA-11 is no different. So for me, this vehicle is not really worth it compared to some of its compatriots. Just the fact that the Yak 3 VK107 is around this BR just kind of, puts this thing to shame. The VK107 is so much nicer to fly, and also at the same time just feels a lot better in different game modes. And then also you have other options in the premium area, which are just better too. There's a reason why the LA-11 kept going down in BR compared to the LA-9, and it's just because of the fact it's just a fatter version of it that doesn't really feel nice. If you want to kind of work out if you want to purchase this or not, there is a standard tech tree version in the Chinese tech tree that you can give a go, and yeah, it's not exactly great. That's all for today. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.